biggest misconceptions about tech and tech careers in general is that you need to know how to code to make six figures or to succeed in the industry. But that's not true. And my guest today is going to share exactly her journey into tech and how she's been able to succeed at companies like Deloitte, Oracle, KPMG, Microsoft. It feels like a long list of multiple different companies. And the role specifically she's in, as that might be a path you want to explore. Welcome to the podcast, Tochi.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Joanne. It's exciting to be here and to share my journey. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, customer success sounds to a lot of people like customer support.
Mhm.
What's the difference between those two roles?
I love that starting point because I get that a lot when I tell people, yeah, customer success, like, oh yeah, like customer service. I'm like, no. So customer service is equally an important role in any organization, but it's different from customer success. I like to start by talking about the sales organization because typically customer success is part of the sales organization. Now you think of any subscription based, let's use subscription based solutions as an example, right? You buy the product, right? So the salesperson, who could be under the title of an account executive or an account manager, they go in there, they sell you the solution, telling you, hey, if you do this, it will give you this value, and you go on and you purchase it. So that's going through the sales process, right? You do your negotiations, all of that sales process. Now, after sales, right, that's where customer success comes in. So customer success is part of the post-sales cycle. Now, what that means, and I guess that's where the confusion with customer support comes in, because customer support is also post-sales. But what we're doing post-sales is we're helping drive the adoption and usage of the solution that was bought. And this is the reason why we are inundated by so many options today, right? Let's take, for example, our streaming platforms. We have YouTube, we have Hulu, we have so many different subscription based platforms that we could go on to, cool down after a day of work or whatever. We just, is it Netflix, is it Hulu? So many choices. At the end of the day, all those companies want people to come back to their platform. They don't want people to subscribe to watch one show and cancel their subscription. They want people to stay on, right? Because they see the value and they see the need for their platform. So that's what customer success does. It ensures that stickiness, right? So I'm there to drive adoption. I'm there to drive utilization. I'm there so that when the decision comes to say, to like when you're thinking, should I renew my subscription to this solution? Should I, keep paying whatever amount of money I'm paying? I'm there so that that decision is an easy yes. So that's the point of customer success, making sure that you are seeing the value and return on investment from your actual purchase that you've done, such that you're a raving fan and you're like we like to say in my company, a customer for life. You're sold on the value and the utilization, or the utility of that product. So
So that's a really great explanation, and you use a lot of interesting like industry terms, but I want you to bring it back, right? So
okay.
think about it. Let's go back to that same example you used. I'm a customer who, has a Netflix subscription. Of course, I know it's not going to be a direct match because you're not working with individuals, but let's
Mhm.
just go with that analogy. What do you do, right? For me as a customer, that just to help people understand the value of the role.
Okay. So as for you as a customer, so imagine you're my customer and it's Netflix. So what do I do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
Awesome. So what I would do is at the point where so let's take for example, you pay for your Netflix subscription, you typically get like a welcome email or something to just show that, hey, we're glad you purchased XYZ, right? They're excited for you, right? So that's the first thing. I also take part in onboarding, right? The customer has gotten the solution. I'm coming in there to let them know what they need to do from day one, right? This is what you have access to. This is what you can start doing now to start utilizing and start deriving value from the solution. So if you have, because Netflix also, I mean, many of us unsubscribe from the emails, right? But they typically would send you, hey, there's this show we think you should watch. right? Even when you are on the app, they're suggesting you might like this, you might like this. They're looking at what you've watched in the past and they're suggesting things for you. Same way as a customer success manager, I would come in and I would try to understand what the company's goals are. And based on my understanding of that, I'm suggesting ways that you could use the solution to help you drive your goal. So at the basis of it is really understanding your customer and their goals. So the same way Netflix is suggesting things to you, whether it's through emails, whether it's on the app, they're suggesting um, shows or movies, right? So and they're engaging you through Instagram, whatever medium, right? I also engage my customers in that same way. At the end of the day, the whole goal again is to ensure that stickiness, that you're always coming back to the show, you're always coming back to the platform. Does
Yeah.
that
No. That's a great one. And to be honest, the first answer was real. But again, working in tech, the podcast, and if you guys are just joining
Mhm,
for the first time, is designed for a lot of people who are outside of tech looking in, right? Trying to figure out what are the roles, what are the personalities, what do I need to do to
mhm,
get there? So I always like to kind of like take it back to the basics where
yeah,
we're not using as much of like the industry term, but just
mhm,
breaking it down in ways that everybody can relate to. And you gave some really good examples, right? Because, just with my own limited understanding of just sales and like customer success and things like that, it's really great that companies have figured out that, if your customers are finding value in your product,
mhm,
they're finding it very hard to leave. That's why many new products will say, try for free, because they
exactly.
know like once you see the value in the product and now they say you have to pay, a lot of times you don't have any choice. Like your data is already on there, you already
Mhm,
enjoy the experience, etc. And that's what, like, in my understanding, like what customer success tries to do. It's like, oh, watch this show, watch that show, check this out. Did you
yep,
know you could also play games on it? Did you know you could do this? Did you know you could do that? Before you know, you're spending an inordinate amount of time on the app. You're not really thinking about like the value of paying the money is not as painful as if, it's like, why am I even using this app? Let me cancel it, etc.
exactly.
So why specifically was this role that you chose? And I asked this question because there's so many different opportunities and options in
Mhm.
tech. To the average person coming in, it can be very overwhelming. What was your own mental model in choosing customer success as the path?
Great, great question. And I think I will start with a little bit about my background to set the course for that answer. So I did my undergrad. For my undergrad, I studied management information systems, which is a tech, based course. So I do have a technology background. Coming out of college, I didn't want to go into pure tech. And when I say pure tech, I guess it's just my way of saying I didn't want to code. I didn't want to be a technical person. I found that balance of business and IT to be the sweet spot for me, where I was able to speak the technology terms and language and understand when I'm interacting with technical people, but I wanted to be interfacing mostly with the business. So that was like what I figured out, to be the experience that I wanted coming out of school. So from there, I went on to, you talked about the places where I worked. Deloitte, I was a generalist consultant. Moved over to Oracle pre-sales. I was in pre-sales while I was at Oracle, did that for a year, then went into KPMG, where I went into technology advisory. Now at KPMG, I wasn't still, hands on keyboard coding. I still stayed in that lane of business and IT. Most of the projects I did were around IT strategy or IT project management, for large scale implementations. So I still maintained that course, right? And after a couple of years in consulting, I realized I was, I came, I saw and conquered, and I was ready to head out of that industry. Um, and for me, the transition period there was I went to get an MBA. I'm not saying everybody has to get an MBA to get into customer success, by the way. Again, I'm walking you through my journey that led me to customer success. So while at the MBA program, that was my opportunity to start all over again. At least that's how I viewed it at that time, where it's I'm going to take this blank slate. I'm going to go through this process and see it as a blank slate for me to write what opportunity I wanted to go into post my graduate study. I while I was there, I had the opportunity to intern at Microsoft, right? And I think that was very, very pivotal in me transitioning to a CSM role. While at Microsoft, my internship was as a sales excellence manager. Sales excellence is just a fancy name for sales operations. Just you're the background, looking at reports, helping with processes, etc. But even if I was in the sales excellence team, my mentor and manager at the time was very intentional. I think we were both intentional in designing what I wanted the internship experience to be like for me. I wanted it to be an opportunity to explore as many roles as possible because for me it was the leap path into my phase two, right? So phase one was everything I did before the MBA. And again, MBA was a time for me to rewrite what I wanted to do going forward, right?
Mhm.
And I would even touch on there, like that's where being intentional about your journey is really important, and having the right people, having the right mentor, having the right guidance with like through that process is also very important. So as an intern in the sales excellence team, my manager still made it a point of duty. Like after I explained my goal to her, she set up a lot of she set up a lot of what I call the interviews or meet and greets with people across different roles in Microsoft. Now she started it for me, and I went on to add more and more people to that one-on-one meeting type situation, right? Like I just found people in whatever role, and I'll play the intern card. Hey, I'm new here. I'm trying to learn about XYZ, and they're always eager to just sit down with me and tell me a little bit about what they do, right? So it was through
So
that
if
experience.
it's okay to just jump in there very quickly, right?
Yeah.
How important is that? Because I think the biggest thing that I've seen with people who are new in tech is that fear of the unknown, right? Like I
Mm.
know very limited stuff. I don't want to sound stupid. Why is that okay? Why is it okay to not know enough, but still be willing to show up? And is there a way to do it? Because ultimately, if you think about most careers, right? Like think about doctors, for example, you have to be ready day one that you're a doctor. How is that different from working in tech?
Um, to answer the question, you said about like, not knowing enough. I like to put it this way: is someone who acknowledges that they are lost that would be found. Like if you say, "Hey, I'm lost," then you realize where you are and you realize that I need to be found, right? Like um no one has all the knowledge, has all the information. And I think um the important thing is to just acknowledge that you don't have it all, you don't have all the answers. Like that's the first step, and then you reach out there and find people who do. Because the truth is, everyone, you might be thinking of yourself and be overly self-conscious that, hey, I don't have what it takes. But the thing is, everyone around you is also trying to figure things out, right? So sometimes it just takes that first step of asking the question, right? And I think people are more eager to help than we realize. People are more eager, especially when it's something that they are passionate about and something they are knowledgeable about. They're always eager to help. They're more eager to help than we realize. So, you know, understanding that, hey, I don't know this, that's the first step to actually finding out what you need and filling that knowledge gap. Um,
So if we make that a bit more practical, right,
mhm,
to the person watching this. So I want to be a CSM, or maybe I want to get into tech. I don't know if I want to be a CSM or not,
mhm,
but I know like I'm not technical. I don't want to go the technical route. A lot of the good stuff that you've kind of like said about how you kind of like figured out how you wanted to land.
yeah.
And I want to ask for help in that process. What's the right way to do it? Because again, there's a right or wrong way. What's a good way to start thinking about, who to approach, how to approach them, what sort of questions to ask them to kind of like help you figure out like if this is a path for them or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. So I will try to answer that in two ways, right? So in my case, where I was an intern, I had a leg in the organization, so I could easily look up people and reach out to them. and we had a common ground, maybe that I would lead with that being the key differentiator, right? So in this scenario, I had the common ground with them because we're both in, at least people I was reaching out to, we're both in Microsoft at the same time. We're both working at Microsoft. So it created this common ground for me to reach out to say, hey, I would like to have a chat with you about XYZ. I think so. One of the ways, what worked for me then was again playing the intern card. I'm new here. This is me. So two things I would say I used. One was intern card. I don't know anything, but I'm willing to learn. Right. I saw your title. I'd love to learn more about what you do. XYZ, especially when what they do is in line with any of the projects that I'm working on, or there's something that just creates a little bit of commonality between us. I would always put that there. The second thing I would leverage, or I leveraged rather while I was at my internship, was to also piggyback off who referred me to them, right? So use that as an opening door. Oh, I spoke with Stephanie and she highly recommended I meet with you. Or I spoke with Jackson, right? So all of those are ways to kind of like soften the intro when you're reaching out to someone to find out more about them. So that's in a situation where, there's easy commonalities that you could pull to reach out to them. Now there's the tougher way, which is where it's cold. So I'll call that like a warm intro, right? And there are situations where you are not doing an internship. You're just, on the other side of, for example, LinkedIn, or you are at a conference, for example, in person, and you see this person, you see this title, and you want to reach out to them and talk about, like, you want to do that intro and learn a little bit about what they do. Now that is a little bit tougher because at the back of your mind, you feel the risk of rejection is higher because, again, there's nothing warm in that introduction. What I would advise in that situation is to go ahead and ask, and think of it like a conversation that you're about to have. Like, think of it like, how can I think about what you want? Let's start with that. Think about the goal. Think about the outcome that you want, and lead with that. Let your why drive you when you're creating new connections. If you don't have clarity, and sometimes we think about it, but we don't think about it in the sense that we know that, okay, yeah, I want to talk to this person, but understand the why. Like, why do you want to? What's the outcome? Let that be what leads you, because it will determine how you present yourself, how you speak. Because sometimes you could get, especially when you're meeting someone for the first time, you could get like a little bit jumbled up and you're saying 100 things at once. And for them, it's a little bit confusing. Like, what does this person want? When people reach out to me on LinkedIn and there's no clarity in what their ask is, sometimes it's difficult for me to respond, because I'm like, you're asking me for 30 minutes, but what do you really want out of this? Like, how am I, like, what help do you want from me in this 30 minutes? So being able to be clear about your ask really helps. And just go for it. That's what I would advise.
And I think you kind of like called out a few things there. A really great answer, by the way. But I just want to quickly highlight them just so that nobody missed them. I think the first one that I heard was, first of all, feeling okay being vulnerable, right? Like, there's nothing more off-putting than trying to show off to the person who's actually going to help you. Like, like that's number one on the list of things not to do. And then number two, like that you said that I found really, really good, is find commonality, right, between people. Of course, be genuine about it. Don't be fake about it. Like, but find things that are meaningful that tie you together to that person. You're asking for something that may soften it. So to your point, and even online, even on LinkedIn, there might be opportunities there. Maybe you even find a warm intro, like, do you have a connection? People have asked me before, like, do you know this person and I'd like to talk to them? I mean, that's even how we're talking, right? Through a connection.
Exactly. Yes.
So soft connections do work everywhere. And thought of all, which is what you said that I found so important, and I've stressed this a million times before, so thank you for giving me another opportunity to stress it. It's the idea of finding ways of not wasting people's time. I think it's so important not to waste people's time. People are very busy schedules, they have very busy days, they have very busy lives. If you show up intentionally, showing that you respect their time, they will approach you with that same energy, right? The biggest thing that I see with people who are trying to break into tech is that, you know, they they look at themselves as being at a disadvantage, meaning that you have the role, you have the knowledge, I don't, right? Which is valid,
Yeah.
but you also have something. You have curiosity. Like my knowledge in itself may not be as valuable if other people are not willing to partake in it. So
Mm-hmm.
me being able to share that knowledge with someone actually makes that knowledge more valuable. So you can provide attention as the value. You can provide willingness to learn. Literally, like one of my mentees just started his internship this week, and that's one of the biggest highlights for me this week. Being successful after getting help is a big plus to the person who felt like they had an impact in your journey. So that's also very key.
Yep.
So if you tie all of that together, that's the value. But the most important value is you've done that research, right? So for example, I want to ask you about being a customer success manager. I know what a customer success manager is. I know kind of like what the path is. So now I'm coming to you and saying, do I need to get certifications, or what are the soft skills I need to build up to be in this role?
Yeah.
I've looked at this, I've looked at that. Coming that way, first of all, like this is somebody who's already on their way, right? So if
Yeah.
you help them, you're just pushing them further forward, right? Versus someone who says, oh, I saw that you work in tech, and I'm just gonna ask you, like, what does work in tech look like? Can you mentor me? Like
Yep.
that just shows like that's zero effort outreach, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
showing I'm just reaching out for convenience, right? Like I'm not. And the flip side of that is that the difference between those two people when they reach out is that the first person usually follows up, right? Because they need something that they're gonna action and then come tell you back like how this worked.
Yes.
Versus the person who's just reaching out, like, you know what, maybe they saw a video, it's got some fire in their belly, they reach out to you, but after you told them whatever you told them, it's done. Like they don't care anymore, right? Because it was
Yeah.
just so that was just, I know it's a little long-winded, but I
That's
really
all
wanted
right.
to say that.
No. I'm glad you did, because I think there's something that I also I think before the show started, we talked about whenever I was looking for a job, right? Like, and I guess to bring everyone up to speed, I did go through a layoff a couple of years ago. So going through like recruiting again and just finding another job. One of the things I did, and I think this also translates into what you're talking about, like when you're meeting people for the first time. Sometimes it's daunting, like walking up to people, but think of them like your customers. Like if I want to be a customer success manager, I'm aware that one of the key soft skills is, like, in fact, that one of the demands of the job is that it's a customer facing role. So I'm going to take you as my customer, right? Like if this is if I'm meeting my customer for the first time, how, like, act like you already own the job. So whenever I was meeting people during the interviews, that's how I treated the interviews. That's how from talking with HR to the hiring manager, I treated it as I would if I were talking to my customer. How would my demeanor be? What kind of questions would I ask? So whenever you're coming into a networking space, especially when you're networking for a job, embody the role that you are trying to come in for. And I do like what you said about doing your homework. When people ask me, like I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn, and some of them are like, "What's a day in the life?" or "What is this? What is CSM role?" Um, and can I get some time to learn about what your company does? I think that one actually, makes me feel a type of way, because what my company does is available online. You know, um, so I'm like, how you said, where it's, I've done this. When you show, like, I've done a bit of research, I'm not starting from zero. It makes me know that, oh, that this person, because I don't want to pour into um
A
it's always,
basket.
I was trying to use the word basket, but that's the right, yeah, I don't want to pour into a basket. I want to know that it's so exciting when you see someone like achieve, and it's not in a way of looking at it like a savior complex, like, oh, I did this great thing. It's just the fact that, like, to your point, we're all busy. Life is life, okay? Like adulting is it could be the ghetto sometimes, you know. So when people carve out time to share something and pour into you, and we actually see those seeds come forward, like you're actually nurturing, you're taking care of the knowledge and the time and the effort that this person has poured into you, and you're actually being a good steward of it, and like bringing forth fruits, it's exciting. It makes me feel like, you know what, I can. If you asked me for 10 minutes, I give you 10 minutes and you did XYZ. Oh, I'm ready to pour 100 minutes into you next time because I know it's not a waste. And to your word, like it's not a basket, right?
Yeah, it's not just it's not going in and coming out. Like it's
Mhm.
doing something. And to your point, like I think the person who said it best that really changed my perspective is that the average person working in tech making, anywhere from 100K to 350K,
Mhm.
every hour has a dollar amount, right? So if you say give me 30 minutes, that's $25. Who's paying for that? A lot of the time they are, right? So it's okay. Like nobody's trying to charge for it. But I mean, some people do, and that's kudos to them. But at the end of the day, if somebody's giving you something free like that, it's very valuable.
Yeah.
And you can use it in ways that are mind-blowing, right? Like how can you get an insight into what an interviewing process for product managers specifically in this company are? Because they differ from company to company. What are the unique things about salary negotiation and being upfront? Like it's so interesting. It's like to your point about I want to know how like the culture of your company. That's a good one, but it's not even deep enough, right? Like, can you say what you found out? Maybe, oh, I see like, you work at Amazon and like I've heard about customer obsession. I've actually read the memo and I had some questions about, how that comes up in pre-interview questions and things like that.
Mhm.
I think if you ask it that way, that person is like, yeah, don't worry, I got you. You
Yeah,
can't find this. The litmus test is very simple. Don't ask people the question you can Google online. If you're going to
exactly.
speak with a CSM, you better have already watched like 3 CSM videos on YouTube because there's free knowledge out there so
There is.
that you can always supplement what is confusing with what exists. So for example, like there will be many schools of thought when it comes to, get certifications for cybersecurity, get this many certifications, don't get that many certifications. But at the minimum, like you have to know those nuances to say, okay, what should I do? Like, should I only focus on getting the security plus and I'll be good? Or should I
Mhm.
get some other certifications after that? If you have that kind of conversation, then you can bring out the nuance, right? The person can say, since you don't have an IT background, it's very useful that you go get those foundational ones to get this.
Yeah.
But since you do this, and that's where those are enriching conversations, not tell me about, because a lot of the time it's like there's too much time to invest in that foundational piece
Mhm.
that I almost don't even want to do it. Like we're not going to get there fast enough, but if you've already done your piece and I'm adding that little to it, you can get a lot farther.
Exactly. Exactly.
So going back to the original question,
Mhm.
or to kind of like the initial premise that I said, not everybody's cut out for technical roles. What are some reasons why some people should actually go as far away from technical roles as possible, given your experience as a customer success manager, and why maybe things like this may be perfect for them?
That's a good question. Um, so the reasons why people should go away from technical roles.
Certain people, not
Certain people-
everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like to say do it like be experimental. Life itself is an experiment. Like life is a series of experiments. You want to be able to try things and realize, nope, not for me. I like to say, we probably know Dexter's Lab, Dexter and Didi. There was always this big red button. And no matter how many times she saw it in every episode, she's like, what does this button do? You know? So this is not, your cue to go blow up things. But this is being able to ask, like you use the word curiosity, lean in with curiosity and try out, things. So for me, I did a little bit of coding, okay? And like the Java, C plus plus, C, what other language? I think I did a bit of Python. And through those experiences and experiments, I knew for sure that I would have a very horrible life if that was my career path. Okay. So it was clear to me, right, that it wasn't something that I derived joy in, right? I mean, if it came down to it and I needed to, like, if there was a gun to my head, or, if it was a life or death issue, I mean, it will probably take a while, but I'll probably get it done, probably with Google or ChatGPT or whatever. But I just knew it just wasn't, it didn't spark, it wasn't for me. It wasn't my thing. And there were people who could do it in their sleep. They could, they were excited about, putting their hands on keyboard and just troubleshooting and having a code work perfectly. So experiment for me, do that. That's how you find out what works for you. Um, and when you realize, like, and that's another thing I look at. I mean, we probably heard the term career clarity. So have that clarity about the kind of experience you want. I knew the kind of experience I wanted. So I knew that I didn't need to lean toward the technical side, but I enjoyed the promise and the impact of technology, right?
Mm,
Like how it can actually simplify things and just make us be more productive as humans. So I knew I wanted to still stay in the space. And so for those of us who totally are not down for coding, but do enjoy or are interested in tech, there's room, right? There's
mm,
room for us. There's room for you. There's room for me. And yeah, so I followed that and realized that um, at the end of the day, there are people who create the technical solutions, like they're the people who code, the developers, but there
mm,
are people who test, there are people who use, there are people who purchase, there are people, so there are different people across the value chain, and there are people who sell these technologies. So I knew that there's room for you across the value chain. You just have to figure out what space would be optimal for you, what kind of experience you want, right? If you want a customer facing role, then you could be in sales, you could sell the technology, you could be in customer success, um, you could be a change manager if you want to focus more on the operationalizing part of it, like, putting into production, making sure people are using it. Da, 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 da. You could be a change manager, managing the change as one transitions from technology A to technology B. If you want to help with gathering business requirements, you could be a business analyst. So there are
mm,
so many spaces you could play in without wearing a core technical coding developer hat.
mm. I think you kind of like said it beautifully, and just to reiterate, like, or at least what I've heard from you, that I thought that really resonates with the way I think about it is you really get an unfair advantage when you do things that you're naturally good at,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, there's no point struggling through something that's not natural to you when there's an opportunity to literally make the world your oyster. And there's so much opportunity everywhere, like within the entire value chain, as you mentioned. Like, there are engineers who are engineering things, there are designers who are designing things, there are, salespeople who are selling things, there are
Yeah,
customer success people keeping people in that pipeline,
yeah.
and people have natural talents. Like, some of the best engineers can't sell anything to save their lives, right? They can only build, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's needed too. And people, like, there are people who are just naturally like what, for example, like, I'm also not extremely technical. I know that my superpower as a person is strategy, like just thinking about how different pieces fit together. Like, how should this work with this and how should that work with that? And I'm also, okay in dealing with people. So I brought those two talents together, and that's kind of like how I mean, like products, or solution management, and things like that. But that was kind of like very conscious, and I've had people try to like nudge me, whether it's during drug search processes, to, oh, why don't you look at this? Why don't you look at that? And it's not because I'm not curious to try them, but I just know that, you know, am I the person who's really thinking about a bug at 3 a.m. in the morning? I don't see it,
Yep.
right?
That's not me. Get someone else to do it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I like what you said, like about your strength, playing to your superpower. There's this saying, I might misquote it a little bit, but like, the logic still applies. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you would say it's a failure, right? So there are things you do beautifully and you do it well. Like you said, Joan, there's room for everyone. Like in that ecosystem, let the developers develop, let the designers design. If your superpower really is selling and just interacting with people, and sometimes it's difficult for us to um what's the word, acknowledge our superpowers because you know it's what we do every day. Sometimes we just discount it. Like, but if you have a natural flair for people and conversations and relationship, like you have a warmth, there are people that when I get on the call with them, no matter what, like it's like instant ray of sunshine. They're not doing it's just who they are. So as simple as that is, it's something that can be a distinctive superpower for them in their role. They could do well in sales or anything that has to do with customer facing, or even like there's someone in my company, we call him like the customer whisperer. No matter how like high tense, like no matter how crazy the situation is, he comes in there and I listen to him because I'm like, it's the same English he's speaking that I speak. But somehow he just eases, and they're always like, he always gets comments from the customers saying, "Oh, like this guy is so amazing, so glad. Can we have him come to us again?" Like easy,
Natural talent. You can't
natural.
teach it.
Now you can't. There's some things like that just flows like. So don't discount the little things. It could be organizational skills. It could be the way you interact. It could be the way you connect with people easily. It could be the way you think strategically, right? You see the bigger picture. It could be the way you pay attention to the details. You see the tiniest detail and how it could impact things. It could be how you see the risk. Like people say, oh, but you always think, yeah, that's risk management. Okay. Like you're seeing the things that could go wrong and you could create a plan to mitigate it. Like whatever it is, it's your superpower. So just own it. Wear that cape with your full chest, you know?
It's actually wild that you say that because and it's two things that you said. One, it's that you can be so skilled that even other professionals, like people who are skilled at a rate that's higher than the average person, will say that person is skilled, right?
Mhm.
That's one. And then two is also the fact that there's a potential for you to really just not even do anything extra, just do what you do, but be able to impact at a higher rate than anyone else. And that's why, like, of course, I'm gonna do a shameless plug here, but you guys, if you're watching this, go check out, my video about how to choose a career in tech. I think it's so powerful. To your point, like there's so many things that we're good at that we don't even give ourselves credit for. Why? Because and it's natural. It's a good thing that we're always looking at other people and
Mhm.
comparing ourselves and looking to grow and develop. That's a great thing. But never do that too much to where you don't see where you're great at, because you can only reach your fullest potential when you find your foundation, which are the things that you're just already naturally good at,
Mhm.
and build on that. Because I know people can hear like, oh, don't go try to be somebody else and then say, oh, you know what, I'm just a people person. I don't care about technology. No, you can always build other skills. You can foray to other regions, but understand like, you know, no matter how great Superman is, it's not gonna spin a web. That's not his thing.
Mhm.
That's Spider-Man,
Mhm.
right? Like, so everybody can still, but everybody's still a superhero at the end of the day. Like, we could all do our own things.
I like that one. I'm gonna steal it.
And then you got to pay me for it. So, quick reminder, or quick shout out. Welcome to everyone who's joined or who's just joining. This is the Working in Tech podcast. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Tochi today, who's a customer success manager with a breadth of experience across multiple different roles and multiple different Fortune 500 companies. Today, sharing, our experience with us on the podcast. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. We'll get to them. But still enjoying our conversation. So again, feel free to leave any comments or questions in the chat, and she'll be more than happy, I hope, to take them. So what are some things that people overlook that are very, very important to becoming a really, really great customer success manager?
Hmm, that's a good one. Um, for customer success, I think it's I'm gonna say listening. There are a couple of things, but I'd like to really harp on listening because when I say listening, a lot of people immediately say, "Oh yeah, that's easy. I could do that. I'm listening to you now. Great." But the thing about the human mind is that the human mind is trained to predict. Like right now, you're predicting the next word that I'm about to say. Like at the back of your mind, you're like, you're gonna say, like you're predicting based on what you've, like your treasure trove of experiences, right? It could be good, it could be bad, whatever it is, but you're pulling from that. So at the time where conversation is going on, you are already predicting and wondering which of these scenarios that I have in the past, which of these match what is going on right here. Um, and that, my friends, is not listening, that is predicting. So when I say what of the skills that one of the skills that is really important with customer success is listening, it's suspending every assumption and actually connecting to the person in front of you. So suspending every, and it's okay. And this is not to say that predicting is a bad thing. Oh my God, my brain is bad. My brain doesn't work well. No, your brain works as it should. You should. That's how that's human. Okay, that's the human biology. You're supposed to do that. But what I'm, pushing for here is, as you're meeting with a customer and they're telling you about their problems, because that's where you're going to start. You're going to start with their challenges. As a customer success person, you're looking for the opportunities where they could use the solution, right? And see the solution work for them, and then be able to show them, hey, this is the value. So at the point where they're telling you the challenges they have, right, so you could find the right opportunity for them to use the solution, you want to be listening to them and not pulling from your many experiences with other customers. Because one customer can tell you, oh, I want to do IT transformation, but what's IT transformation for customer A can be very different for customer B. And they could be in the same industry, right? It could be same oil and gas industry, same healthcare industry, whatever. But IT transformation could mean different things for two different customers. So your ability to actually listen and tune into what that person is communicating to you at that time is very important. And you would find that when you do that, you're asking more intelligent questions because you're listening to them within the context of the experiences that they are having. You're seeking more information, right, to fill in the holes. So yes, it's okay to, because even customers will tell you, I want to know what other customers are doing. Like you want to even come to the customer conversations and say, based on my experience. People like to say that, like, I have a lot of experience, so like based on my experience, that's great. But pause, suspend assumptions. You could you could, like, don't disregard them, but hold them aside, right? And actually connect. And through your connection, through the questions you're asking, you could start disproving or
Validating or invalidating your assumptions.
right, before you say, okay, this is fact, right? In the first couple of meetings, you're not going there with this is the solution you must use, or this is, you're going there to listen and understand, have your theories, you test them, you validate them, and then you really, that way you're able to connect with the person in front of you. So listening, I would say, is a key skill.
As you're speaking, I just see so many similarities. And first of all, like, you dropped so many gems. I actually like that. Suspend your assumptions. That's a really good one. But I see so many similarities between the product role and the customer success role. Ultimately, I think they're in the service of the product, so it makes sense that they're actually very similar.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think personally that separates like great product managers from like okay ones is part of what you say. Like, so many people want to jump to the solution, right? Like, this is what I think the solution is, off of like a half-baked response or half-baked idea. And I think one of the best examples that I usually go back to, it's kind of like, I think there's this story of folklore or something about six blind men touch an elephant. And to them, it was six different things. So the one who
Yeah.
touched the rocky part, the one who touched the hair.
Yeah.
So that just tells you about how different people can look at the same situation and kind of like come off with different perspectives. But it's great that someone can look at the same situation from six different angles to be able to tell a complete story, right? I think that's where the real value is. In product for us is like three whys, right? Like the customer say, I have this problem, then you say why. Some
Yeah.
people it's even five because ultimately, like by digging deeper, you can really understand what's the motive, what's driving this person. And
Mhm.
if you really understand that, then you can provide a solution that really meets the need, right? Because ultimately, if I say, oh, in fact, it's literally what Henry Ford said, right? Like if I asked people what they wanted, right, they would say they wanted faster horses.
Mhm.
Essentially, it meets the need, but it doesn't create that kind of exponential value that they're looking for. So if you are able to extract the problem away from like horses, then you see it's a movement problem. And then you see like people want to get to destinations faster, safer, more efficiently without having to deal with like the horse poop and all of that. Like you really find a way to build the right solution by understanding customers at a deeper level, partly by listening more and wearing my product out, but also even anticipating and understanding. I think listening is great, but understanding is probably, at least from my product lens, even
Mhm.
deeper. It's like, I hear what this person is saying, but can I also hear what they're not saying?
Mhm.
Right? Which is kind of like the product app. But I think in customer success, since it's not like new builds, they're already working on the problem. I guess that works. But it's very fascinating to me just seeing how those two worlds
Yeah.
interact.
Yeah, because like whenever you're dealing with a customer, or like there's you're interacting with someone, you're trying to solve. I guess it's just the foundation of problem solving, right? You want to understand the problem that you're solving for before you start providing the solution. So I think that's where the two, kind of
Fuse.
like converge yes, just understanding the problem. And to your point, I also use I do the five whys. I guess the goal of it is not in the number of whys, but in the fact that you have to ask the why. Like there's a term for it under I forget what it's called now, but it's called design thinking. Under
Yeah.
design thinking, called abstraction laddering, and essentially it's just saying go deeper. What is the why? What is the why? Oh, are you going to the park today? No, I'm tired. Why are you tired? I haven't eaten. Why haven't you eaten? Because I didn't buy food. Why didn't you buy food? I don't have money. Why don't you have money? I don't have a job. Like the more you ask why, the more you see the real problem to be solved. So yeah, I think it's just the nature of problem solving um, roles, or being in a situation where you're actually trying to solve a problem. You really need to understand what you're solving for. Otherwise, you're just throwing things at the wall and hoping, hoping it.
I think I really, really actually like your example because ultimately, like, I think that really captures the essence of it, right? Like,
Yeah,
you could be solving for an energy problem. It's like, oh, you couldn't go to the park. Here's the energy drink, right? It's like, I need a job. What are you talking about?
exactly, exactly, exactly.
And this person on LinkedIn, unfortunately, your name is not showing. Really agrees. Great conversation. Yes, Tochi's dropping some fire gems. um, so money is another thing that people really care about, right? And I
Mhm.
know for different roles, like different salaries, locations, etc. For people in customer success roles, like how much can they expect to make as they're kind of like working in different roles? So like from entry level, mid level, senior director, etc.
That's a good question. Now, I will say, um, I would say anywhere from 120. And it might depend on the company you're working for, the size of the company, the industry you're working in. Um, Most companies are transparent. I know when I do see some posting on LinkedIn, I would see a range. So I will say early career starting point could be somewhere around that 110, 120 for early career. And of course, the more you advance, you would go up in the salary bracket. But yeah, I would advise that you check with HR. Uh, People also don't really. So now most jobs would put it out there. And I find that some people also are hesitant to ask like HR, or ask their HR friends. Ask. That's what I would say. The worst you would hear is a no. But in terms of, I guess, short answer to wrap it all up is it depends on the company, right? The salary bracket. But what I'll estimate as an early in career CSM role would be the 110, 120. It could go up to like 130, 140, depending again on the company.
Got it. And what's the career pathing, or like, let's say for example, I'm an Uber driver. I want to become a CSM. What should I do? Like, do I need to go to college? Like, how can I do it?
Hmm. So for the customer success role, I will let me put it this way. Let me you know start this way where it's not a technical role. I mean, we already talked about how I'm not that kind of person. Okay, coding is not me. So it's not a heavy technical role, but they do most roles do require product knowledge because you're going to be talking to customers about utilizing a product. So it's essential that you do have some product knowledge. So some companies would look for a bachelor's degree that touches on like a technical course, maybe computer science or MIS or something that something in that line. However, I will say that um, more important than the degree is the knowledge of the technology itself. So if you can show that, maybe through certification, and now this is where it kind of broadens because you could be a customer success manager for someone in like the ERP, like maybe the solution is a CRM or an ERP, or you could be a CSM for an automation and AI company. Like it could vary, but I would say what is needed for the role really beyond the soft skills part of it, because we did talk about listening, we talked about strategic thinking and all of that. What is needed is really the product knowledge. So I would advise to get your hands dirty on um, exploring the product for the field that you would want to get in, right? So most of them have like trial versions. Go out there and try it out. If you would, there isn't any unlike cybersecurity, where there are specific certifications you could go take. I wouldn't say there isn't for CSMs. There is one called ProSci Change Management. It's quite expensive. It's not heavily required by many people. I would just say, as a like generally speaking, there is no specific certification you could go take as a CSM. There are some that exist, which are nice to have, but I wouldn't say that they are a must have.
Mm,
So it's soft skills, and you could also start somewhere else. I know people who maybe they started out in customer experience, customer support, but having some adjacent customer experience also helps, right? Because again, you're dealing with people. So yeah, that would be my general advice, right? Start with your adjacencies, build some knowledge and some experience, and then also expose yourself to the product so you have good technical background or technical knowledge of the solution that you will be going to say, hey, I want to be a CSM for.
yeah. And if I could add a little bit to that, I think something that's also very helpful, like product, CSM, those type of roles, is that you have to be a knowledge worker. Like, you have to consume knowledge. Like, I would imagine that even if you were coming brand new out the door, but you understood, for example, like, let's say it's enterprise software, you know what the sales cycle looks like, you know what the, billing, invoicing cycle is like, you know what
Mhm.
closing looks like,
Mhm.
just all of those kind of like base knowledge that it's like you rightly said, it's not in a course anywhere, but you can find it and you can talk to people in the industry. And those are even the things like when we go back to that initial thing about networking and asking questions, those are things that you can really, because a lot of times the reason why people wouldn't take uh, chances with new talent, a lot of times is not because you're new, it's that you're so new that the work that a lot of people have to do is too much. And it's like, you know what? You're not ready yet. So we're going to go in a different direction. But there's something to be said about someone who's new, but already kind of like has OG knowledge. It's like, oh, you mean you've never worked in the industry before and you know all this? Oh, come work for us. Because I know how you're going to do in this role just because of how
Mhm.
curious you are or of how much you soak up information. So I think the biggest thing that anybody who's outside looking in can do for themselves is like figure out a way to build that knowledge, especially if you're targeting a role like CSM, so that
Mhm.
like when you're having that conversation, this person can say, yeah, they're
Yeah.
really good.
And sometimes it's even like it could be industry knowledge. That could be your edge. That could be your edge in. Um, Now, this is not for a CSM role, but I know someone was telling me about it was a business developer role, but she employed a teacher. So like that was the person's previous career. But what stood out was the soft skills. What stood out, and like you said, the curiosity. And she did some research around the area like that the company will be selling into, and this was for a tech company. She got the job, right? So sometimes it could be so you can imagine that kind of situation where it's for the education sector. You are in the system, you kind of like know how it works, or it could be healthcare. I've seen people transition from healthcare to health tech, but what they did was leverage their industry knowledge, and they already had the soft skills they could build on. So there are things like that that could help you stand out still as a candidate, even if you may not be coming from like a technical background, or again with customer success there isn't any clear certification for you to go do, but expose yourself, right? Build that knowledge base and go from there.
Absolutely. Uh, Thank you so much, Allison. She's a such great questions and answers. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we still have a few more minutes. If you want to send Tochi and I some kind words, or you had a question, please feel free to add it. But right before we take that, like we're coming towards the end. This is usually where we give our guests the opportunity to shout out or promote anything. You might have a new Netflix special coming. You might have a book, New York bestseller that we should be expecting. So, what should we watch out for?
Oh, that's
Or do
like
you want to shout out anyone too?
well, shout out to, now that you say it, shout out to my sister, I guess. That should be like, hey, they said shout out to someone, you didn't shout. Okay, so yeah, there it goes. Um, and then for plugs, I think what I will say is, or just I guess like pattern words would be, um, we talked a little bit about networking and meeting people and going out there. I think I'll encourage people to do more of that. I'll encourage people to like put your best foot forward. Like just do it. Just Nike it. Like if you want to go out there and meet someone, and or if you want to go out and figure out if you're a good fit for this role or something, or if you want to find out more information about something, just do it, but do it with intention, like we talked about, right? Be clear in your why and what's driving you, because there are times even beyond using your why as a way to help you be more targeted in how you're approaching people. It also keeps you motivated, because sometimes, how they say the journey is not always like this. It's kind of like, up, up, down, twists, turns, everything. And your why helps you stay grounded. So the point is, like, just do it, experiment, reach out to people, ask for the job, whatever it is that you are thinking about doing, that would, this is the step to your next level. I just want to encourage someone to take that next step. So
Yeah, yeah. That is so good. That is so good. Take that next step. Take that leap of faith.
mhm.
And that is so key. Like a lot of people are so afraid of like, what if it doesn't work out? But what if it does, right? Like what
What
if
is
it
that?
does work out? What if all your dreams come true? And
Yeah.
I think that's what enough of us don't probably think about, that we should think more about. So I think that kind of like brings us towards the end. I really, really appreciate you, Tochi, for coming tonight. We actually had a hiatus throughout May because I was traveling for the most part. We're really excited to be back with another episode of Working in Tech this Thursday. Catch us again next week where we'll have a different guest talking about a different topic. And if you want to break into tech, go check out, this is episode 71. It's actually mind blowing to think that we've got into 71. But there's a bunch of great videos on the channel. Go check them out. And yeah, that's it. Really appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. And